Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Rubin. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Spectrum Science, and I have not been a volunteer for the COVID-19 vaccine clinical trials, but my guest here today has. I'd like to introduce you to Jen Haller. Jen, say hi to everybody.
Hey, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great. We really appreciate you taking the time to give us a window into what it was like and what that experience was like and the thought process that went into it and the research and just really want to live vicariously through your experience. So take us back to that moment in time. You're with your family, or you're dealing with everything that everybody else is dealing with in the universe, and then all of a sudden, I mean, what happened? Did the thought just pop up that you were going to take part in this trial? Like, what happened?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm always looking for ways to help. It's just kind of how I run my life. And this was the end of February, and I'm in Seattle. And as you remember, Seattle was the first place that was hardest hit by COVID, and so it was on the forefront of my mind. And a friend had posted on Facebook starting to enroll volunteers for the trial. I saw that and I thought, well, I'll just fill this out and just see if I'm a healthy match, that maybe there is something I can do here. So yeah, I filled out the application and
Jen, how long did that application take? Like, what is like? I mean, applications.
If I remember, I don't. It certainly wasn't more than 10 minutes. It was maybe five to 10 minutes. It was more of a general overall kind of health history questionnaire.
And when you fast forward to like when you were in and you were going through the process, did you have to then sign a lot more paperwork? It was sort of like, it wasn't like signing your life away, right? How many pages was that?
Yeah, it was quite an extensive release form. I think it was about 25 pages or so, and I read it through. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a scientist, but I read it through. It was worded well in that I could understand what they were talking about, and yeah, there were a lot of risks there detailed out, and I took it in whole and thought about what good could come from participating in this trial, and decided that those risks were worth it and that I wanted to participate.
And when you kind of took all that in, did you have any discussions with your family? I know your mom, right?
Yeah, so I told my husband about it, and I'm like, I want to do this. I'm going to do this, and he's like, well, should we talk about it? And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. I'm doing it. So we had that conversation. It was good. Some friends and some family members were certainly concerned about, Jen, why do you feel like you have to be the one to put, to risk this, to be the first or one of the first, I wanted to do it. To me, I looked at all of the privilege that I have in my life, and it's really important to me to recognize that and to be able to use that in a way to help others. And so, calculating that all together, I decided that this was something that I wanted to do.
And how in depth were those conversations? Did you have to go into it with certain family members a little deeper and talk about the science? I know you're not a scientist, neither am I, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
But to alleviate the fears and others' apprehensions, did you have to go into more detail with some members of your family versus others?
Yeah, definitely. A piece that really helped me explain why I was doing this, or rather to alleviate the fear that others had, was my ability to explain to them that this particular vaccine is a messenger RNA vaccine, which means that there are no elements of the virus in the vaccine. So there is no chance that I would ever be exposed to the virus through this trial. And at that time, that was really helpful for friends and family to understand and to feel better about my participation.
Oh, that's wonderful. So once they hear that, was everybody like, oh, okay, and just kind of went back to normal life, or did anybody want even more detail?
I think that my friends and family know me well enough that if I have something that I want to do, that I'm going to find a way to do it, and that for anybody that was really concerned, I think they recognize that the best way to to handle this was to support me through it, and they did.
That's wonderful. And was this your first ever experience in a clinical trial, or have you been interested in that in the past?
It's my first personal experience. Though my son is 17, and when he was born, I signed him up through the University of Washington for their infant labs as a control for the studies that they were doing. So he's participated in 3 or 4 studies at the University of Washington, and that's been a great experience, and he and I have both been really proud to contribute in that way.
Is the magnitude of the opportunity, the idea that you can really be part of history and really help people in such a tremendous way, did that ever dawn on you, like just how big of a moment in time this was with this trial?
Yeah, no, I definitely, hindsight is huge on this one for me. I didn't know that I was going to be the first. I knew, I was towards the front, but it wasn't until the night before that I was going in that I caught a breaking AP story, and it said the first person in the world is going to get the trial vaccine tomorrow morning. And I'm like, well, my appointment's at 8 a.m. That might be me. I don't know. So I went in. There were 4 other participants that day. My appointment just happened to be at 8 a.m. The others were at 8:30 and 9 and 9:30.
The first. You were the
first? Yeah, the first. There are reports that China did start a trial that same day, but they don't have any specifics on that, so we're not certain, but certainly the first in the U.S.
So you mentioned the night before, like usually on a Sunday night, I have trouble sleeping because I got the whole week ahead of me and whatnot. Like, did you sleep that night? Were you like thinking about it all night, or did your head hit the pillow and you were out?
Yeah, I was thinking about it for sure. I wasn't scared. I was just anxious, and I knew this was, I at the time I knew it was a big deal. Now again, with hindsight, I really recognize that it was what a big deal it was, but.
And going through the process of going to the trial and getting your the shot, did you have any expectations moving forward and going through it? Was it everything that you sort of thought it would be? Was it simple, like getting the flu shot? Like, I think people kind of want to know what it's like when you kind of enter a building and everything sort of starts. What is that like?
Yeah, it was very simple. It was very professional, walking into the building, and everybody around was very professional, and I do remember kind of the air in the building that day was monumental, and it was quiet excitement, I think, really what I was sensing there, but very easy process. Yeah, I mean, simply went through blood draw and then got the injection. It was very similar to getting a flu shot, and then the next day, the only thing I felt was soreness in my arm, very similar again to a flu shot. So it was a very simple process.
Is there anything that you think you would have liked to experience a little differently during the trial, in terms of did you feel like you did enough research? Would you have wanted to know more? Could you have used more information? You talked about hindsight, like. Mm-hmm. What advice would you have given, those who've taken you along this journey and say, hey, no, do this here. Tell us more about this over here. Like, just in retrospect, it's always easy looking in the rearview mirror, right?
Yeah, totally. I think that, my level of understanding of the science and the release form and everything was just fine for me. It was fine for my comfort level. I felt like everybody that I interacted with was very willing to answer questions and to review anything that I needed more information on. One thing that I would have liked, which I believe is not possible in a trial like this, but I would really like to know, like, personally, like what are my results? Like, what is my antibody level and everything? I don't get to know any of that as a participant. I only get to know just what they release publicly that everybody else has access to.
And did they contact? I read somewhere that you were like at a Mexican restaurant, I think, when you got a call. Like, I want to know hard or soft tacos, but I want to take to what did you learn when you were at that restaurant?
Yeah, so it was again, it was the end of February when I filled out that form online, and then I believe it was just the next day that I had just gone out to meet a friend for tacos at the Mexican restaurant. I just sat down, and my phone rings, and I never answer the phone when it's a number that I don't recognize. But I just, I thought, oh, let me just answer this. Let's just see. And I answered it, and it was the trial coordinator, and they asked if I had 20 minutes to talk on the phone, and I said, well, I just sat down with a friend. Can I call you back later? And she's like, yeah, you can. And I sensed the hesitation in her voice, and I paused, and I'm like, if I don't take this call right now, do you think that like maybe I won't get a chance? And she's like, well, yeah, we have a lot of people on the list. You're just one of the first calls. We'll probably just move on to the next on the list if we don't get this now. And I'm like, great. So I apologized to my friend, and I stepped out of the restaurant and took the call. And so it was about a 20-minute call, talking about my health history and a lot about my ability to show up to all of the appointments for all the blood draws and the follow-up appointments and everything.
Like an important lesson for all of us, like cold tacos versus life-changing information.
Yeah, it was the right call.
I
thank my friend for being so graceful in allowing me to take that call.
That's incredible. Getting back to motherhood and just sort of the enormity and the magnitude of this moment in time and vaccines in general. I know it's a very sort of polarizing topic for some, not all, but for some. How would you describe the importance of clinical trials to other moms out there? The importance of the trials themselves.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these trials are critical in moving us forward and in finding a vaccine. And if I would say to other mothers, if you feel like you have some safety and privilege and safety nets in your life that could allow you to do something like this, I highly recommend it. For me personally, it was a great experience, and the sense of doing, or the sense of being able to do something has been really big for me right now. And during this time when we feel all so helpless during this crisis, it's really given me that sense that knowledge that I am doing something to help, and that's really meaningful to me. And it's obviously a great example for my kids to grow up with, and I think for my community and my friends and neighbors and family also.
Well, I know you've spoken a lot about this, so you're obviously passionate about the experience and what you've done, and that's great. Do people come up to you still within your family, and are they still talking about it? Do they still want to know about it, or has sort of the moment passed? And if so, if they are talking about it, what are they asking you now that maybe you might find interesting?
Yeah, definitely. People in my life are still interested in how it's going. It depends on my relationship with the person, but certainly definitely a check-in on how you doing. Are you still feeling okay? That's always a great one. My mom, she's got a Google alert set up on the clinical trial. So anytime news comes out, she forwards it right to me. She's pretty excited, and she's had a lot of fun telling her friends about what I'm doing. It's cool. It's great.
And if you had the opportunity to go back in time and give yourself some advice as you were going through this process again, what would you tell the version of you that would go through this again? What, if you could?
Yeah, I mean, all of that, as far as being a trial participant in a vacuum, like that was a very simple, easy experience, and I would 100% do it again. As far as this particular trial and being the first, wow, I learned a lot about media and about interviews and just handling that moment and handling getting my voice on what's being able to talk about what's important to me and why I participated in this trial. That's been a real learning experience, and I've been really happy to have that experience. And I think another great takeaway is never read the comments on the internet. Just stay away from the comments, because there's
Yeah.
Nothing good is happening there.
No, they're at most they're wildly entertaining, or they could be at times.
It can be, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How old's your children right now?
They just had birthdays. They are 17 and 14.
17 and 14.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, we talked a little bit about, your conversations with your family and your loved ones. How did you explain it to your kids?
Uh, I told them that I'm doing it, and that I explained to them about the messenger RNA and how it's not won't that through the trial I won't be exposed to the virus, so there's no risk to me, as far as contracting the virus. So they were happy about that. Their main interest was after the first day or two to report back to me on how many TikTok views I have and how many Reddit upvotes I have and things like that. So they had a lot of fun. They got a good lesson from mom about don't interact on the internet, trying to defend me or whatever it was. It was a good lesson for them. So,
But you're probably very hip in their eyes. I mean, all of a sudden you're lighting it up.
apparently, yeah. They were pretty proud.
Were they into the science? You mentioned about talking to them about. Were they curious about that at all?
Uh, no, I didn't have any lengthy discussions with them about the science.
And when you were presented with the science behind the trial and the vaccine and whatnot, do you think you had adequate information? Do you think more could have been done or been more accessible in any way? I just want to get a sense of how easy it was for you to be educated on.
Yeah, no, I think every opportunity was there for me to learn more, to ask questions, to do my own research, to push back at any moment. I'm a really trusting person, and that has worked really well for me in my life, and I will continue to do that. But so it didn't require a lot of research on my part, but I know that fellow trial participants did a lot of other research on their own, and they had a great experience as well with getting answers and feeling comfortable with what they were participating in.
What do you think is an important lesson the science community or even the world has learned from the opportunity for us or for you to participate in the trial as well as other people? What do you think the community has learned?
Yeah, I guess I think we've learned that that in a crisis that we can move quickly and that we can move safely, and that this is doable. When a vaccine may take years and years to get to this point, with everybody working their damnedest to make it happen, and trial participants like me and others who are willing to step up and get this started. It's something that we can do, and I'm really proud of everybody who's participating in getting this figured out for us. Something that's so important to me is to talk about privilege and to understand that if you can recognize privilege in your life, that I would really recommend looking at ways that you can use that privilege to help others. And this is one thing that I found that I could do that I'm very proud of.
What advice would you give others who are thinking about enrolling in a clinical trial?
Do your research and consider the risks and consider what that means to you and your family, and if you feel like you're able to take that risk, then I highly recommend it. I mean, the ability to give back to our community in this way has been something that has been a huge blessing for me. It has been a complete gift to me and to my family. So I feel great about it, and I would recommend, again, if somebody is in a situation where they feel like they can do this, then I say go for it. It's great.
What's a common misperception about the clinical trial process that you think people have?
Oftentimes I'll get a question about, does this mean that I was exposed to the virus, or will I be exposed to the virus? How will they know if it works? And so I've been, doing a lot of education about that this is a phase 1 trial, and so principally looking at safety in humans and dosage. While they are looking at my antibody results, that it really isn't the purpose of phase 1, and that's when they move on to phase 3, which they are in now, where they're really going to be able to test the efficacy of the vaccine.
What would you say to mothers out there who are worried about the future or safety of their children?
Yeah, I mean, I am too, and I think stay positive as much as you can, and be strength for them, and model um, compassion, and I'm a big fan of science, and I would model to them that they should research, and they should understand what scientists know about vaccines and about viruses, and it's not as scary as it seems. I think that's fair to say, but just modeling that strength for the kids.
Bringing the fear factor down
Yeah,
to
yeah,
manageable levels.
yeah.
Um, I'm going to jump a little bit here. We're almost at the end, but when you left that building after that first day, when you were the first, what did you remember feeling when those doors opened and you walked out back into civilization? Do you remember what that felt like?
I certainly, a breath of fresh air, like, okay, I did it. This is underway. Looking forward to seeing how I feel later today and tomorrow. And yeah, I think, it certainly took a week or two, or at least a week, for it kind of all to settle in. And it's still it's been I don't even know, has it been 6 months? It's been about 6 months, and it's still settling in for me. So it's a constant learning process of everything that's going on and what it means.
So it's interesting. It's like the shot is quick and whatnot, but the whole experience and processing it and is a much longer tail on that than
Sure.
probably people might realize. That's
For
really.
sure. Yeah, 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 definitely.
If you could say one thing to healthcare workers and frontline workers out there, what would it be?
Oh man, thank you. Healthcare workers, frontline workers, grocery store workers, truck drivers, farm workers, food production worker. I mean, the list goes. Janitors. I mean, there are so many. What turned out to be, I mean, they always were, but what we recognize now, essential jobs happening in this country, and they are so many are not recognized for all that they do for us to make my life here comfortable, and I really hope that we can that wasn't just a flash in time, and that we can move forward and really recognize those who are breaking their backs to keep our country running.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. What was the thing you remember most about your experience? The one thing that keeps popping into your mind, maybe it was about being there at the facility, or just the one thing you kind of keep coming back to most.
That AP image of me, getting that vaccine, or that dose, it was certainly burned into my mind. It's interesting because it's an interesting experience in humility, because it not a very flattering picture every time I see it, and it's been great for me to accept that, and to like, this is what it is, and this is what it was, and that is the image that's out there, and to be proud of that.
I just want to thank you, Jen, for talking with us. Everybody, I'm Justin Rubin, Chief Creative Officer at Spectrum Science, and we just want to thank Jen for sharing her experience with us. I really appreciate it. One last thing, one message you want to leave everybody with, Jen?
Science is real. I don't know how else to say that, and I hope that we figure that out and move forward and get better.
Volunteers are crucial to advancing medicine through the discovery of new treatments and cures. Without them, a vaccine for COVID-19 is not possible. Clinical trials are only part of the voyage to a vaccine. Ready for liftoff?